Hey everyone, and welcome back to another video. Today, we're going to be reviewing both Kep1er's Doublast with the lead single Up, and Loona's summer special album with the title track Flip That. We're mostly going to be focusing on the music today, but I'll also be doing a little bit of commentary on like line distribution and the music video and stuff like that. I mean, you should all know the drill, it literally says review in the title, so without further ado, let's start by talking about Kep1er. So I just want to start off my commentary on Up by saying that this is a massive step up from WJSN. I think Up really learned from a lot of the problems that WJSN had, and where their debut song didn't have much of a sense of identity and was overall just pretty messy, Up absolutely had a clear vision from the get-go and just made a lot more sense. The standout sections of the song are absolutely the chorus, but I also really enjoyed the bridge and the dance break. One thing that I'll say about Kep1er is that their biggest strength is probably their dancing skills, so I'm glad that Up gave them a chance to really showcase that. But at the opposite end of that, and probably the only negative thing that I have to say about this song, is that whoever wrote Up, along with just a majority of 4th gen girl group songs, still doesn't realize that we don't all need to rap. I was honestly kind of fine with Hikaru's rap in the first verse, but then Dayeon's rap in the second verse really threw me off. And we know that Dayeon is an amazing vocalist, she literally sang the chorus this time around. So I don't know why the producers of this song thought that we needed a second rap section, it just felt unnecessary. But at the same time, it's not a big enough problem to me where I didn't save the song and didn't immediately put it in my playlist. I mean, that chorus is just too good. And every other positive thing I said about Up still applies. As for the B-sides on this album, I definitely don't think that any of them were stronger than Mask. Mask is still probably Kep1er's best B-side if you look at their entire discography, but I wouldn't say that any of them were completely awful. Starting off with the first one, I think you pronounce it Le Voyage. This was definitely a nice summer ballad. I don't know if you necessarily want to call it a ballad, but I would at the very least call it ballad adjacent. Something about this song and most of the other B-sides on this album is that it felt very island-y, I guess. Like a majority of these B-sides could be the background tracks of some sort of animated movie where they're sailing through the ocean. I thought the first half of the chorus with the anti-drop felt a little bit weird, and at the beginning I almost thought that it was just a continuation of the pre-chorus. But then it builds and evolves, and that second half of the chorus is just so pretty. Overall, a super relaxing song, and while I might not go out of my way to listen to it because I'm not the biggest fan of down-tempo tracks, I saw what they were going for and I think they executed the idea pretty well. On to the next B-side, we have Attention, and this one was a little bit confusing to me because the verses made me think that the song was a ballad, but then the chorus was pretty upbeat and fun. So in that sense, the transition into the chorus feels a little bit clunky, but I did enjoy the sections individually, so overall I have good feelings about this song. I did, however, really dislike the second verse. Something about that section immediately after the first chorus just felt off, and even after listening to it again, I just could not get into that one part. Next song on the album was Good Night, and I honestly don't have too much to say about this one. It was probably the most basic ballad in this EP, and though I thought their voices sounded sweet and lovely, it was just boring to me, I guess. Goodnight was a nice song, but if you know this channel, you'll know I'm just not the biggest fan of ballads, and since this one didn't really bring anything unexpected to the table, I just couldn't really get into it, and this is actually the only song on this album that I did not save. And next up we have Rewind, which was another ballad, and put yourself in my shoes for a second. Imagine you're me, someone who's pretty vocal about his dislike for ballads, and you're listening to this album and it's just ballad after ballad after ballad, like non-stop. So when I first listened to Rewind, I was honestly kind of over it, and at first I did not like it at all. But then I give it a second listen because I usually give songs at least 2 tries before I firmly say that I dislike them, and after that second listen, I kind of think that Rewind is the best song on Doublast. The only kind of ballads that I'll go out of my way to listen to are the ones that are a little bit more groovy and brighter, and the best thing about Rewind is that it's set in a bit of a more natural key for the girls, so they're able to show off the best parts of their voices. All throughout the almost 4 minutes of runtime, it didn't sound like they were straining to hit any of the notes, and this is by far the standout B-side. If you're not interested in checking out the entire album and you only want to listen to one of the B-sides, this is the one to go to. So overall, I thought that this album was okay. It was a nice little EP for the summer, and all 5 tracks fit that theme super well, but I could have used a little bit of diversity from the B-sides, and the fact that all of them were at the very least ballad adjacent hindered how interesting the album was overall, I think. The title track was the strongest track, I would say, and although this might change in the future, right now I would give Doublast a 7 out of 10. Definitely not too bad. Next up, we're going to be talking about Loona's summer special album with the title track Flip That, and I don't really care to give any commentary on the intro, so let's just talk about Flip That. I definitely did enjoy Flip That in the sense that I feel like it was a step in the right direction for Loona's creativity, or I guess you could say their image, because, and I know a lot of you are going to roll your eyes at this, I wasn't the biggest fan of Loona's Girl Crush era. My favorite Loona title track as a full group is Butterfly, but if we're including subunits then it's Girlfront. And since I think Flip That was a little bit reminiscent of Butterfly, I definitely enjoyed it in that sense. And like how I felt about Butterfly when I first listened to it, I'm still not sure how I feel about Flip That, since they're singing in the lighter part of their voices for a majority of the track. Right now, I think it would be better if they used a little bit more power in their voices, but I thought the same thing about Butterfly at first, and then Butterfly became my favorite title track. So the same thing might happen here, I'm not sure. I thought the final chorus was super good. Like I said before, the beginning of the track felt a little bit empty and underwhelming, so when they had that sort of climax at the end and changed things up a bit by adding some new vocal lines, I thought that was a super good way to finish off. And I definitely like it right now, but I'm not sure if I love it. I gotta do a little bit of a side tangent right now, and I'm so glad that we got so much Go On Center this time. She really does shine in concepts like this, and I am so glad that Blackberry finally decided to utilize her well for once. The last time they did that was literally like Love Forever. Now onto the B-sides, the first one was Need You, and what I wrote down in my notes was ... a little boring. I liked the energy of this song. It definitely felt very main character / protagonist-esque, but when I was listening to it, I felt like the biggest part of the song was the lyrics, but I couldn't really connect since I don't speak fluent Korean. So right now, regarding Need You, I'm pretty indifferent, but I'll have to read a translation later and reassess. Next up, we have Pose, which they already released when they performed it for Queendom 2, and I won't lie, at first I did not like Pose at all, but when I re-listened to it when I listened to this album, I enjoyed it a lot more. When I listened to it again, I realized that it was much cleaner than I initially thought, and that beat is just so dirty, so I actually ended up putting Pose on one of my playlists. I'm glad that I was given some time to let Pose really marinate in my brain and then come back to it when this album was dropped, because I don't know what happened, but I enjoyed it way more this time. And next up we have Pale Blue Dot. The first thing that I thought when I heard this song is that I thought it felt very Western, but I'm not entirely sure who I think their inspiration was. It just felt like something that I would hear on the radio. I'm pretty indifferent on most of the song right now, but like Flip That, I thought the bridge and the final chorus were amazing, but the initial beat drop again was just kind of weird. And finally, we have Playback, which is actually my favorite song on this album. Something about that percussion, specifically in the chorus, that little clinky sound, I don't know what it is just so good. It tickles my brain in the right ways, and I even like this more than the title track. So interesting, so right up my alley. I can tell that they made this one for me. I think all in all, this album was a little bit weak, and I think my final score for it is going to be a 6 out of 10. It felt a little bit disjointed and uncohesive, and I think it was overall a pretty confusing release, but it wasn't awful. It's just, I don't really get it. I also have to say that Chu sounded so amazing. Her voice is so distinct, and now that I enjoyed her so much in this album, I'm super upset that she's not going to be going on tour. And for this day, I think Kep1er and Loona both had okay releases. Neither of them were amazing, neither of them were awful, but they're both acceptable at the very least. And that concludes this video. Thank you all so much for watching, and I hope you enjoyed. If you enjoyed, consider leaving a like or maybe even subscribing. And without further ado, I'll see you all in the next one. Peace out.